Greetings and welcome to the channel. This is Ron from Tarot of the Twin Sun. Tarot of the Twin Sun is a functional division within the Order of the Twin Sun. This is a reading for the sign of Aquarius, the planetary ruler of Saturn for the month of August 2022. Exactly 8:54 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. There's Saturn retrograde. Okay, Saturn is a slow-moving planet, and as it is in retrograde in Aquarius, this indicates essentially a lack of humanitarian ideologies. Okay, or the refinement, rather, deconstruction or refinement of collective goals or ambitions that is tied to some of the missions that Aquarians tend to have. Okay, one of these has to do with the addressing of, I would say, the 7th house, okay, from Aquarius, which is in Leo. Sun and Mercury, there's a solar return as well as Mercury in Leo that is highlighting the 7th house, or the descendant of Aquarius. Okay, usually this indicates the mind of others, minding others, as a sort of cautionary tale. Okay, this has to do with observing the passions or the leader's sort of agenda, the mind of the leader, the mind of those who have influence within power systems or structures that are falling. Okay, commitments that are falling, anything that has to do with karma. Okay, the falling nature of this, it stresses and highlights essentially the pride or egoistic quality of other people, and how the mind of theirs conflicts directly with the reconstructive or deconstructive properties of what is going on the self. Okay, that is through Aquarius, the subtle body, or perhaps the energetic body of oneself, is being redefined in a certain way in which the image or the way one comes across to other people, especially Leos on the descendant, come through a sense of scrutiny or a sense of self, once again, reconstruction through deconstruction. There's an element here of finding the puzzle pieces or the fragments of the first house of one's multidimensional being, and essentially understanding that there's a process here of limitation, reification, and reconstruction through all of this. This has to do also with reform. There's something about this that speaks of redefining or reforming oneself in order to accommodate others that have to do with this axis of Aquarius and Leo. Okay, it's a fixed axis. One thing that can come to fruition here is to acknowledge that other people, particularly within the 7th house, they have something to teach you, as can be seen here with the Sun in Leo and this positive aspect in terms of Jupiter retrograde in Aries in the 1st house. There is something here that can actually lead to a type of liberative quality through the auspices of fire, through the purification process of fire. Now, fire burns, and as it burns, there is an insatiable lust to burn out, to complete its own cycle of consuming. Okay, so it's very important to note that the collective diet of others and their own lifestyles, or perhaps their own way of doing things, procuring knowledge and procuring the path, has to do with something of your own lesson, that with the two great benefics in terms of lessons, in terms of wisdom, that is Saturn and Jupiter in retrograde in Aquarius and Aries respectively, can allow for a great lesson in terms of the limitations that Jupiter has as well as Saturn has in realizing through self-reflective qualities a way of coming into the self, into the house of the first. Okay. Some of the more positive, harmonious aspects has to do with your own resources. The element of hard work with Venus in the 6th house in Cancer allows you to essentially come up with ways of stratification in a cardinal way to meet obstacles and to fixate on these in order to come up with a value system, okay, that's highly elicited by what is known as the this triple conjunction, okay, of Mars, the North Node, and Uranus and Taurus. Now, this has been a highlight sort of. This is a highlighted event in terms of astrology, and it's highlighting your second house in particular. Resourcefulness coming through hard work, so it's important to hit the grindstone and to move through those motions. There also is here the seventh house with Moon in Virgo, something very strongly elicited in terms of your own actions and your own desires during a time of instability. Okay, there's a way to find order through purifying the inner world and coming up with a way of self-criticism to reify a certain degree of wealth. Okay, I'm seeing wealth here very much on the cards. That, or there's a possibility for intellectualized ways of learning, new realizations through another, through especially the emotional meanderings of another, or the sort of reflective, self-critical qualities of another that have to do with this Virgoan quality. Okay, now Virgo, with its moon, moon in Virgo, is not exactly the most ideal place in terms of having this. I mean, Diana, for example, and the Vestal Virgins are linked to the moon, so there is this sort of I would say reflective quality that would allow you to define a sense of self, or at least challenge your own dreams and realizations in terms of endings and spiritualities. There's something here very much speaking of a transformation that has to occur eventually when Pluto, Neptune, Jupiter, and Saturn go direct in your 12th and 1st houses. Okay, what does this indicate? It does indicate a great deal of closure when it comes to the realization of self, culminating in terms of the idea that the self is forever changing, and perhaps there's something with the limitations of Saturn in Aquarius, as well as Jupiter and Neptune in their own sort of elements that have to do with essentially the general limitation of these lessons when it comes to the sense of self and liberation of that through understanding others, okay, through understanding especially the emotions or the egoistic impulses for self-preservation that come through Sun in Leo and Moon in Virgo, okay. This elicits primarily, I would say, the general sort of self-reflective qualities that can be crippling when it comes to you dealing with others. There's an eclipse energy that is highly highlighted here that can actually speak wonders when it comes to the purification qualities of principle, of design, when it comes to the thoughts and the intellectual capacities of the emotional body, as well as emotional intelligence that have to do with this way of purification through self-reflection. Okay, coming to the light by the auspices of what one would call the High Priestess, as well, the Strength card. Okay, dealing with the shadow realm, or realizing that the path is outside as opposed to within oneself, or affecting someone's emotional capacity. One thing that I would point to is a great sense here that through others there is a possibility of great realization in the 12th house, Pluto in retrograde in Capricorn. Okay, what does this mean? It means that secrets of the etheric plane can actually bleed and permeate into your own being if you are able to open up and tap into the spiritual lesson of Capricorn. Capricorn is actually tied to Lucifer and secret knowledge, karmas that are directly linked to the 10, 11, and 12th houses. Okay, and this is speaking about the progression to nothingness, to essentially release from the 10th house. Okay, release from reality. So there is a great mystery here that ties directly to the definition of self for the month of August. Saturn in retrograde primarily dominating this, and Uranus also, which is a co-ruler of Aquarius, tied to the South Node. Let's see here. There's a possibility of awakening in terms of the axis of Scorpio and Taurus in your 2nd, 3rd, 8th, and 9th houses. Okay. One thing to note is that the desire for stability is best handled if it comes from a place that is not from a lack mentality. There's a way to sublimate your own commitments in order to find the silver lining or the spiritual undertone that can color great transformational change in terms of your own truths that come from a past life or a past incarnation of Scorpio. Okay, this would of course have to do with your own particularized, individualized chart, but for the energy of Aquarius in terms of the ascendant, sun, or moon, there is a possibility of great transformational change that is harbored in the 8th and 9th house, great secrets coming about through the 12th house even. So the path of moksha is on the horizon, the path of liberation is on the horizon. Thank you.